Now, in that case, we'll get underway. Welcome to all, and a very warm welcome to Richard Ross, who hopefully will delegate me from my current role as interim chair of the meeting and take over and run things from now on. So you're very, very, very welcome, Richard, I assure you. Now, there's such a large number of attendees, an encouraging number of attendees, that perhaps rather than go through a long list of introductions, if you could possibly just, as you come forward to speak, if you could possibly just introduce yourselves at that point, and we'll just forego the rather extensive list of introductions, which may take some time indeed. So all being well, we have the next item 2 is the minutes of the last meeting, which is a very extensive record of what was transacted, and in turn, if I can just snip through what I have in front of me, we had a presentation from Planet Youth, with whom I've maintained a positive relationship, I hope. We had the whole family wellbeing team presenting to us. And then we went on to the subgroups, transport from Richard, and he will pick that up again today, early on. I did the fuel poverty and food poverty, and I'll provide updates, of course, are in the, should be circulated with the papers for today. Marianne picked up on homes, which is going very, very well under her direction. A bit of depopulation coming in there again. Thereafter, on to emotional well-being, which is Leslie and Niven. Employability, a very valuable contribution from Fiona Webster, who's picked up that mantle for us. And picking up on the forums, I must admit there's something which has fallen away rather as from my point of view. West Forum has a contribution. The Central South Forum, well, we're short of community councils at that point, so it's perhaps something that I have to pick up if I find time. And East Forum awaiting a new chair. And then a report from Northwest 2020-2045. And thereafter, resilience from Angela and David Watson with a report on the activities of KOSTT, and thereafter AOCB. So are we quite content with that record of very extensive and detailed record of the last meeting? And I'll take silence as agreement unless anybody wishes to come in and complain. Marianne? I see a hand.
Hello. I wasn't at the meeting, but I wondered if I could clarify something that's minuted.
Certainly, please do. Now's the time to do it. I'm
representing Town Community Council, but I also sit on the board of North Coast Connection and Transport for Town. And there's a bit about when I read the minutes, it looks like Transport for Town do not have the proper license. We do run with proper licenses. It's just we cannot afford to run the college transport under a Section 22 license. We run it under
Section 19.
And you can't use bus passes on that.
Yeah, okay.
Students getting to the college do get their transport paid for by the college. It's apprenticeship that don't. But the problem, I know you're all aware the problem has been sorted. But I didn't like the way the minutes read.
Okay.
Like using proper licenses.
Okay, no, that should be corrected. Thanks for pointing that out, and now's the time to do it. Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay. David?
Just one minor one, just a wee typo that it's Gledfield Primary School, not Glenfield Primary School. So just in case anybody's wondering where that is.
Yes, indeed. Yes, I did notice that one when I glanced through it. Okay. In that case, if we pick up on unless there's any further items to pick up on, we can move on to item 3, which is the Southern Resilience Initiative, and an update on the SRI transport project from Richard and from Miles Prescott of Arbon Foresight. Sorry, Fiona, you're coming in there before me.
Yes, I was just going to give the apologies, Jim.
Okay, I missed that. Yeah, keep me right. Sorry.
That's all right. So our apologies today, Stuart Patrick, Police Scotland, Heather Taylor, NHS, Ben Liversedge, Scottish Fire Rescue Service, Donna Murray from Mikey's Line, Amanda Wagstaff from the Golspie Bothy, Denise Campbell from Tykes, Cara Donald from Nature Scott, Christine from the Scourie Development Company, and Claire Nichols from Youth Highland.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, please just jump in and keep me right as we go along. Okay, unless there's anything else I've got wrong, I'll pass on to Richard. Are you going to pick up on the transport at this point?
Yes, I'm happy to do that, Jim. But I think if we let Miles come in first of all, Miles from
Certainly.
Urban Foresight, to give us an update on the project that they're running for us, and that's to build the integrated transport plan for Sutherland. So Miles, you want us to come in and do your presentation, and then I'll come in at the end. Thanks.
No problem. Yeah, good morning all. Miles Prescott, as Richard just mentioned, senior consultant from Urban Foresight. We work across the zero emission and sustainable transport space, working with Richard on the integrated transport plan. So I've got a little presentation today to quickly run through a bit of background and the direction we're heading. So if I can share my screen, I'll just load the presentation. Is that loaded up for everybody?
Yes, indeed.
Perfect. Yep. So to give a little bit of background, just to start off with, this is the second phase, the integrated transport plan phase. But the first phase of the project was a study for Focus North, which was envisioning the future public transport in the North Mainland of Scotland. So covering both Sutherland and Caithness. To delve into that a little bit further, we were tasked with establishing a sort of clear and ambitious aim for the future of public transport to meet both the national and regional sustainable transport objectives. So yeah, we're really working across Sutherland and Caithness to achieve this, working with Focus North and Hub North Scotland. How we developed the study, we looked across some sort of key themes: desk research, stakeholder engagement, a large public survey, which I'm sure some of you may already know about, some modelling into the current modal split and where that may head towards 2030, looking at the impact of different interventions, and then also some implementation strategies as well. So the key outputs of the survey, I suppose, we had 354 responses. 47% of respondents never used public transport, and 3% only used it daily. So that sort of formed the basis of our approach to moving into the integrated transport plan. I suppose some of the looking at a couple of those graphs there as well, the main issues that were highlighted were services not being frequent and reliability being an issue as well. On the right-hand side, the key sort of activities that transport was negative impacting was the leisure and the health services as well. So that study undertaken late last year led us into this phase 2, which is the integrated transport plan for Sutherland. So we're really building on the work that's been undertaken in phase 1 and working with Richard and the Sutherland Resilience Initiative to develop an integrated transport plan for the county. What we are aiming to do is collate findings and learnings with new community consultation to address the needs of Sutherland by really establishing community-led solutions for an improved transport network across the county. Just on the right-hand side, there's a bit of a response from the survey and from the Focus North report as well. It really highlights what we are trying to achieve here. So in terms of what we are proposing and what we're undertaking today, we are consulting and engaging sort of key stakeholders and key groups, so community transport operators, commercial transport operators, head teachers and parent councils to understand what services are currently provided and what the challenges currently are to transport at a community level. We've engaged around 40% of the stakeholders that we've contacted to date, but we're keen to hold as many discussions as possible. So if anybody who was in the meeting would like to hold a discussion, please do feel free to reach out, and be delighted to have a separate conversation. What we are proposing is multi-purpose electric community vehicles, which are operated by existing and new service providers, which are linked and integrated via a unified technology platform, which is already being operated by Hightrans. So the multi-purpose vehicles, the idea behind them is 7 to 8 seater community vehicles that can be operated as minibuses, taxis, delivery vans, school transport, and then a shared community second vehicle. The link really here is the real-time data, which is provided through the platform to optimise and better link informal and formal transport modes. So just diving into a bit of an example of how we see this could work, and I suppose this case study is really focused on a conversation we've had over the past couple of weeks with Dornoch Primary School. There's a large percentage at the minute of primary school students that are using parent transport and walking to school. I suppose the key challenges to that are there's large catchment areas, so some pupils travelling from quite significant distances, which aren't covered by bus catchment areas. The extracurricular activities are arranged during lunchtimes rather than after school, again due to a lack of transport. And other pupils are walking and cycling along dangerous roads to get to schools because they're deemed too close to the school that bus and parents can't take them. So we're really envisaging that the shared multi-purpose vehicle may form an option and a solution to try and mitigate these issues. How we sort of see this working is a bit of a schedule, and again, this is just for an example purposes, but the unmet pupils' morning services are covered in the morning by the vehicle. That is then used for community transport, for healthcare, when it's not used for the morning services. The vehicle is then going back to the school services post-school between 2 and 4 o'clock, and then it can be used for after-school activities later than that. The sort of key from 8 o'clock till 11 o'clock at night is then the vehicle is then available for usage across the community. So what we sort of see the potential benefits to be sort of a unique central system of a central organisation with associate partners, owning and operating vehicles, collaborating with various organisations with, I suppose, the real aim to create green jobs. A more reliable service to improve the passenger experience, really linked again to the central application, technology application, to integrate real-time data. So there's a solution to ensure that passengers do know that there's a vehicle available and they know where to collect and use it from. An affordable service, so ensuring that all costs are maintained as low as possible, provide a good service, and in the long term provide a wage to the drivers. Importance on sort of cutting vehicle costs as well with the approach to EVs rather than the petrol and diesel vehicles. A sustainable network, so using renewables to power the EVs, the electric vehicles themselves, and again optimising current routes and services to improve and save costs. Finally, the integrated element, again, linking to the technology application, providing real-time data for passengers and vehicles through one platform. The platform itself provides a payment solution as well. And also there's an alternative option, such as a phone line, to give the less digital savvy people an option for accessing the network as well. So yeah, that's a very quick run through of the slides that I've developed today. I'm happy to take any questions, or Richard, I don't know if you wanted to cover anything else beforehand.
Thanks, Miles. No, that was really interesting, and it shows what we're trying to achieve here. It's a major project, and it's something that we've been working on now for best part of 2 years, I suppose, off and on. And we're actually slowly getting to the end point, where we hopefully will have some form of service up and running in the immediate future. The issue we have is that we know that there's transport issues across the county. It's been identified in so many different surveys that have been carried out, and it's always been one of the top 2 or 3 issues for every part of Sutherland. We do have some really good transport schemes working in Sutherland, and we're very keen to engage with these guys and work where and not to duplicate things that already exist. And we hope that the existing organisations will be happy to engage with us, because that's the secret to the success of this whole project. The situation is, at the moment, we've applied for funding for vehicles. We've got 2 funding applications in at the moment. One with the Community Regeneration Fund, which will be decided on the 27th of this month. That's a council administered fund, and it's because it would normally have been decided by the Sutherland Area Committee, but all council members in Sutherland who would normally make that decision are members of the Sutherland Resilience Initiative. So therefore we have an interest to clear, and it has to go to another part of the council decision-making process. As I say, that would decide on the 27th of this month. Very confident, touch wood, that part of the application will go through. And then we've got the Sustainable Development Fund from the SSEN, which will be decided in April. That would be the full thing. If we don't get one or the other, then we can still operate a reduced service, and we can build on that. But keeping my fingers crossed that all the applications come through and we have enough of a service to deliver with 5 vehicles serving across the county. The actual management of that is still to be determined. And we will hopefully have a paid manager in place to organise that as we go forward into the new year. But I think what I would like to say is that while this is recognised as one of the drivers to reduce the depopulation that we're experiencing across the county, giving people access to work, access to health, access to education, and access to different leisure activities, it's one of the drivers for depopulation, but it's not the only one. And the purpose of having a company limited by guarantee with Southern Resilience Initiative is to look at other aspects of depopulation as well. So we want to look at aspects of housing, which the partnership is doing already with Marianne, which is doing really good. We also want to look at childcare. We want to look at employment and all the things that affect depopulation generally. And also going forward, I think that, as David has rightly pointed out, we don't have anybody fighting for Sutherland in terms of jobs and development. And while we've got access to the Green Freeport tax advantages, we don't have anybody extolling the virtues of Sutherland and helping us to achieve that, to maximise the benefits from that. So what I would suggest, or what I see at the Southern Resilience Initiative as being the body to drive that forward, the body to go and represent Sutherland and tell people how good the county is and what the opportunities are for development, for employment, and for all sorts of activities that we know, because we've got a wealth of facilities and natural facilities across the county, and we don't make the best of them. And there's nobody out there trying to help us to do that. So the only people that are going to do this for us is ourselves. And if we don't pull together to promote Sutherland as an entity, then nobody else is going to do it for us. We are, technically speaking, that the Caithness Chamber of Commerce includes Sutherland, but there's no representation there at the moment for Sutherland, and we need to try and sort that. So I see the Southern Resilience Initiative as a sort of a de facto Chamber of Commerce, and we've got that vehicle to drive it forward. I'm very keen for other members to join the board once we get it up and running properly. It has been registered. It is a company limited by guarantee, and we're going through the process of applying for charitable status through Oscar. All these things take time, sadly, but we're getting there. We're making progress there. So that's where we are. That's what we're trying to do, and I'm happy to take any questions. I'm sure Miles will be able to answer any questions with the transport side of things.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much, both. If I can pick up with Miles again, it suddenly became crystallized out for me when I saw your frame on Dorna Primary School, because then the practicalities of the thing suddenly became real, and I could see that suddenly see the vision started to become reality when you actually focus it down on an individual community and see just how the thing could work. And are you still taking responses to consultation? Because I was at Durham Academy Parents Council last night, the secondary school, and I think they're aware of it, and they hadn't had time to actually get back to you, and I think they're quite keen to respond. The issues were much the same as the primary school, but I don't know if it's any help to you to have it reinforced.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd be keen to speak, as Richard touched on, as many people in communities as possible. The more people we can engage and speak to, the better, I suppose, the study and the recommendations will be. Okay,
right. I'll make sure somebody gets in touch with you, and we'll perhaps pick up on the extended dynamic of the SII. Of course, any questions from Miles directly on the transport system at the moment? With again, my apologies for Marion for the glitch in the minutes last time around. Simon.
Yeah, thanks. I really have to welcome any funding going into transport initiative in Sutherland. It's so important, but I think it's really important to also recognise that this is not their solution. It is a part of their solution, and it's probably a very small part of the solution. I too was struck by Miles's slide of Dornoch, and what I took from that is, if the understand there's a vehicle proposed for Betty Hill, and if the vehicle in Betty Hill was used in the same way, it would mean that it's not available to help people to get to hospital appointments in Raigmore, because the vehicle would be needed for the whole day to get someone to and from Raigmore, which would mean that you couldn't use it for school transport. So it's a very good start. It's a part of the solution, but it should never be sold as something which is going to be all singing, all dancing, and solve our ills, because I'm afraid it's going to take a lot more investment than that.
You're absolutely right, Simon. I can't argue with what you're saying, and we recognise that this is a small start. But what I can say is everything's got to start somewhere. And if we don't actually start somewhere, then we'll never move forward. And we recognise that the same issue applies across the county, and we're trying to address it. It will be a slow start. We might even start off with one vehicle. It depends on what funding comes through, and we'll maximise that the best way we can. But we're also working with the existing transport providers as well. So we will hopefully be able to address a lot of the issues, and we will. The idea is to get people to their appointments in Raigmore and to Caithness General, so they have that. But we have to start somewhere. We have to be positive about this. And it's not going to solve the ills. I mean, we might be 2 years down the line before we actually get a fully integrated plan working, because we need, it all needs funding, it needs planning, it needs a whole network set up. And as I say, it's taken us 2 years to get to this stage, and I don't expect it on the 1st of April to start off and all of a sudden we get transport and nobody has to have a car of their own. But as I say, it's a positive step forward. And I suppose as much as with anything else, people are used to seeing initiatives being set up but never delivering anything. I certainly hope that that's not the case with this. We are fully committed to delivering a service, and it will grow, and it will actually over time address the transport needs across the county. And don't forget, we're also working with Doonry on this as well. So Focus North are involved along the north coast in particular, and that's your area. So we're working with initiatives from these guys as well. So we hope we'll get additional funding from that direction. So yeah, you're right. It's not the be all and end all. It's not going to solve all our problems overnight, but it's a start and a step in the right direction.
Thank you, Richard. I think we also have to commend the work that's been done over many years by the groups in Tongue and in Durness to actually establish their own. And I think it's important that these are sustained and we integrate with them and work with them rather than compete in any sense. Okay, any other?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, the work that Transport for Tongue has done has been phenomenal. And we want to help with them, we want to learn from them, and we want to work in partnership with them and see what we can do. So we're not trying to take anything away, we're trying to enhance the service. And I think we have opportunities to do that. So if we link everybody together, that's part of the integration. If we link everybody together from the East Coast to the West Coast, and there's lots of little community services around there. If we can link them all together and put them into a plan and working in partnership, then we can really achieve quite a lot very quickly. And I think that's something that we need to work on.
David, you're coming in next.
Just something that Jim and Richard have heard from me a few times. I was in a meeting yesterday, and I heard more about the Caithness Business Fund, which is only available in North Sutherland again. So it's all Doonry travel to work. Richard mentioned Focus North. I think is really positive, the work that's been done with Focus North, because I think what we have to do is try to make a case that Focus North expands its boundaries. That might not be based on traditional of where the funding from some of the main funders goes, but I think we have to make sure that we're counted on that. But if we were to be completely negative, you could look at the investments that are being made in Caithness and the far north of Sutherland through Focus North and the Business Fund, and then look to the southeast of us, to the Cromarty Green Freeport status, and then you look at the decisions made at council where, you know, buildings in Dingwall and Caithness are being kept, but Sutherland's been closed. And so if you're being really cynical, you could say there's a bit of sacrifice to Sutherland here. But what we need to do is make sure that we don't just accept that, and we present viable opportunities to invest in a place that is very investable. And we've got an incredible, as Richard said, natural and cultural heritage, incredible population of people. And we can take opportunities. We just maybe have to push harder to get those opportunities. So I think the SRI is a really good first step. And if we can start to see, which I have every faith, some actions, positive actions coming from the transport project with the SRI, then who knows what we can do from there. But I think we need to find a vehicle that allows Sutherland to have a voice at the table and not rely on some of the other organisations. And there's some amazing organisations that do cover Sutherland amongst other things, like High and like the Highland Council, who will put up, you know, they will talk about Sutherland, but it's not their main focus. I think we need an organisation whose main focus is the future of Sutherland and making sure that our communities don't die and aren't allowed to die. And that's what I see the opportunity in the SRI as. So I welcome the progress with the transport project, and hopefully in years to come, SRI might be delivering housing projects and childcare projects and who knows what. But I think we have to do something, not just sit and wait for somebody else to do it for us, as Richard said. I think we've got to grab the bull by the horns and then find the right people to help us make our case, because we are an investable community.
Well said. And it was just where we go as a first step. Richard.
Yeah, thanks, Jim, and thanks for that, David. You're absolutely right, and we have to be moving forward as a group, and I think we also need to be looking at this as how does the partnership develop? How does this partnership develop? Because this partnership achieved more as a partnership than any other partnership across the Highlands. But I think we've reached a limit to what we can achieve in our current state. And I think that's why we should be considering, as a group, moving towards becoming the SRI and promoting Sutherland. Now, I know that can work. I've spoken to Alison at the council, who runs all the partnerships, Alison Clark, and she said there's no reason why we can't become a company limited by guarantee. At the moment, the partnership can't deliver anything. We're a talking shop. We talk about problems, and we can try and escalate problems, and we can do all of those things. But at the moment, we can't deliver services. We can't deliver housing, we can't deliver transport. We know the problems are there, we've identified them, we've driven things forward, and thanks to David and Scott and Fiona, the work that you've done has been phenomenal, and we have achieved a lot of things. But we're now stuck in that we can't go forward any further. So we need to move on, to develop and see what we can do to evolve into the organisation that we need to be, and become that Chamber of Commerce for Sutherland. And whether it be in direct name or just in the types of activities that we take forward. So that's why I feel that's my ambition, and okay, I'm being ambitious, I'm being optimistic, but I genuinely think we can achieve a lot if we pull together.
Aye, a bit hard to be optimistic after yesterday's budget meeting, but never mind. I'll go on to David and then Simon.
Yeah, just one thing to add to what Richard was saying there. The SCP should be incredibly proud of what's achieved over a number of years. However, there is one, to my mind, huge flaw in community planning, is that if we are to try and increase the prosperity, increase employability, we have to be engaging with businesses, and community planning doesn't allow that at the moment. There isn't a space for businesses in that, and so we have to find a space where we can engage with the businesses and work on not just continuing to give grants to people in poverty, although we will, if people are in financial hardship, we'll continue to do that. But we need to start taking severe actions to try and take people out of poverty. And we do that by engaging with job creators, entrepreneurs, employers, to try and make sure that we have opportunities for people to have a career in Sutherland, and live and work here comfortably. That should be our ambition. And unfortunately, one of the restrictions, and I said this when I was asked to give evidence to the Scottish Parliament Committee on Community Planning, I said that then we have to find a place where people are comfortable that businesses can contribute without fearing that businesses are going to take all the money, or whatever the fears are as to why the private sector aren't involved. But a study that was done by High at the end of the year showed, I think, something like 76% of businesses in the Highlands think that the engagement with their community is as important or more important than profitability to them. So if we need to build community wealth and keep that community wealth in our communities, we need the private sector involved. So we have to find a way and a model to do that, and potentially the SRI could be that.
Totally agree. Right, Simon, you want to come in, please?
Yeah, thank you. I'm starting to feel old, one of the things I'd like to do, Richard, is reflect on my experiences with an organisation that was called the Lothian and Edinburgh Environmental Partnership. It was established in the mid-80s and had a similar vision, working across Edinburgh and all of the Lothians. Later on, it expanded to include Fife and the Scottish borders. So it had a similar sort of vision of trying to get everybody working together towards slightly different aims from this group. But I was involved with that from about 1990 till about 2006. It eventually became Changeworks, by the way. So it did become very, very successful.
Right. Yes.
One of the lessons I would take from that is it took decades, literally decades, of core funding to the organisation to employ manager, office staff, and development officers to slowly build up head of steam, organizational knowledge, to really do something significant. And I think if SRI is to be successful, then there needs to be that sort of core funding commitment to give it time to grow, because these things take a long time to get established. So yeah, that's me being long in the tooth.
No, your caution and experience is greatly appreciated. Yeah, I can't say anything else than that.
Yeah, if I can come in there, Jim. Yeah. Oh my goodness, who's been savaged?
Not much. Sorry, just
Yeah, I recognise that, Simon. I think the area and the experience you've got in Lothian area is relevant, and it's, of course, the Central Belt is a very different animal to Sutherland, but we still have our divisions. We still have our little pockets of communities that want to keep everything to themselves and are terrified of people coming in and taking all their assets away and centralising them and all the rest of it. And I think we all fear that happening within the council services, everything being taken in Inverness and you know, nothing being left for the outlying areas. So there is an element of protectionism that exists in every community. You have divisions between Brora and Golspie and Helmsdale and Robert and Laird, and everybody's got their own little community and they've all got their own pots of money and they all want to do their own little thing. But what I'm wanting to do is to try and address the big things that affects everybody. And that's housing, that's transport, that's employment, that's childcare, all those things that are barriers to people staying and living prosperously in Sutherland. And I think that's what we're trying for. And you're right, it's not going to happen tomorrow. And I recognise that. Nothing really successful ever happens overnight. And yes, we'll need to have funding. But we've got to be realistic at the same time, because as Jim and I and Marianne, and I'm not sure any other councillors ongoing, sat through a budget yesterday that was quite disheartening, to be honest. We're filling in £60 million black holes, some with crossed fingers and views to the sky for something that's going to happen that we might not know what's going to happen tomorrow. So we need to work out how we're going to fund this going forward. We have a little bit of funding through the coastal communities. We have wind farms that cover the whole of Sutherland virtually, all with little pots of money here, there and everywhere. But if you collectively pull all that funding together, then you've got a real opportunity to do big things rather than putting new curtains up on the village hall. We've got opportunities to do really positive things with the funding that we have. Now, our coastal communities funding was cut by 10% yesterday.
Exactly.
And our ward discretionary budget was cut by 10% yesterday. So our funding's going down. But in Sutherland, we're very fortunate in that we have a huge coastal area and we still have a pretty big pot in terms of coastal funding. So that's some of the money we've got there. If we're looking for core funding to deliver this, we can whistle in the wind because it's not coming. We have to make this sustainable and affordable. It's not for profit. We know we can make a pound out of it. We'll have to have employees because it won't run itself. But it's every penny that we make of this, every fare that we take goes back into running the service. So it's got to be sustainable over time. Yes, we'll need some funding. We'll have to be going cap in hand to SSE, to anybody and everybody that will listen to us, lottery funding, whatever it happens to be. But we need people with skills to actually make the applications and do all these things for us too. But as far as core funding is concerned, don't cross your fingers and hope for long, because I don't see it coming. And that's why I suppose I'm so passionate about this, because nobody's going to do this for us. Nobody's going to put their hand in their pocket and say, oh, let's look after Sutherland. It's just not going to happen. So we've got to do it for ourselves, and we've got to approach it from a positive perspective. And I've invested an awful lot of time personally in this, and I continue, and until my time with the council is finished, I'll continue to do it. So it's a personal commitment for myself, and I think most of the people on this call also share that commitment. So yeah, it can take a while, and it will need money, and we'll just have to work through that and aim high.
Yep, indeed. Thanks, Richard. Your point about core funding, obviously core funding of any kind will not come from the public sector. The whole direction of travel for the council the next 3 years is contained, can be looked at through the prism of yesterday's budget. And it's only over time that we'll find just what dangers lurk in the dark recesses of that budget call yesterday. Born of necessity, I'm afraid to say. But then there is a private sector, and as David, if I go back to David's point about growing the rural economy, and it's something I've maintained as the Fuel Group, as we've constantly gone to anywhere we can with the message of social tariffs and so on. My complimentary message, especially to Gillian Martin, has been grow the rural economy, and find a way forward in that direction. And looking back at it's excellent that Simon has that map of Sutherland in front of us just now. It's absolutely fantastic, and I come to you in a minute, Simon, because looking directly straight ahead of me, I see that I'm fighting to kind of retain Broda Nursery, and we'll be fighting to retain Edgerton Primary School, as the council having closed 5 Sutherland primary schools in 5 years. We'll be looking for more sacrifice and looking to cut more bits off the edge of Sutherland, and well, restrict us even further. But we'll come back. Simon, I'll give you your call, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and so when I say core funding, I don't necessarily mean public funding, but I mean public funding would be a great place if it could come from there. But I kind of recognise that's a bit difficult. But I mean, Richard's passionate speech about having people with the skills and expertise to carry on and making sure that you know you have the skills there and you can do all the things that Richard's talking about. These are people you're talking about, and those people need secure jobs, and those secure jobs come from core funding. It's the sort of issue that David deals with all the time. You know, it's how can he keep his skilled staff in place with funding which goes up and down? And there's the Sutherland Resilience Initiative will have the same problem. And unless you can keep those good staff, you will not be able to build the successful organisation that you're talking about, in my opinion. Honestly, that's what I think.
No, we can't disagree with that. You've been through it all before, but then you finished up with an absolutely excellent and successful organisation called ChangeWorks. So the vision is there, but we'll have to move shortly from the vision to the concrete. But I'll let Eileen and David come in at the moment. Eileen, please. I think you're still on mute. Something I do all the time.
Sorry, I was muting it because of my dog, right? Very sorry about that. Eileen Bryant, Melvick Community Council. I just think it's the right time for me to come in at the moment. Some of you might be aware, and some of you won't be aware, that we are almost at the end of a process of our version of community planning. We wanted to know what the people's priorities were, not what the council's priorities were, not what some man in the moon's priorities were. We wanted to know what the people wanted. So we have undertaken a community consultation independently. We've used Frontline, who did the Melness one, etc., very successfully. But it's not just Melvick. Strathy and Altnahara, Armadale have come in with us, as has Betty Hill and has Caithness West. So this is a community consultation over 4 community council areas. And I think this is going to be a very powerful voice for what people want, and to give us ammunition to fight to get it. You know, I think Simon knows about this. You know, so he knows the effort that's been put into this, and hopefully on Sunday we're having a meeting, next Sunday I think it is, the 4 community councils together to look at this document, at the draft copy of it, and once we go through that, then it will be finalised and it will be able to go out to people. But one of the things that we want to do, and well, Melvick in particular want to do this, is to set up an independent legal entity to deal with the income that will come in to our community council area. And this, whatever organization we set up, we will do it. It will be a legal entity that can take other community councils into it if they want to join with us in that, but it will be separate from the community council. But the consultation has been led by the community councils, and the priorities that are identified then that will be the purpose of this organisation, to work with whoever to make sure that happens. I just think it's worthwhile telling you this right now if you don't know it, because we took a view that when we did this, it would also help with this place planning for
Yes.
everyone as well. You know, that the information from this is aligned to place planning as well. But I know from listening to what you've been talking about, I know there's no surprises there. You know, we are going to have, you know, the housing, the healthcare, the transport, all of those are going to be seen as priorities. And I think this will help. This document will help. So that's me just letting you know about it. Yeah.
No, I think that's greatly encouraging. Well done. And think it'd be of great benefit if whatever comes out of your consultation can be submitted to us with permission to circulate it around all members of the SCP, please, if that's okay with yourself.
Yes, yes, that will happen. Yes.
Can I also ask Eileen that we'd love to have a conversation with you from the SRI perspective and see how we can work together, because I think your aims are exactly the same as our aims. And when we're looking at county-wide, you're looking at specifically for your area, and that's fine. But I really love to be able to have a conversation with you and see how we share common goals and how we drive towards them. I think it's very important. And what you're doing is not dissimilar to what's being done in other parts of Sutherland as well. Like Asset Community Council, community areas is doing something similar, and I'm sure Marianne would be able to update us on that. So that there's other drivers as well. Similar things happening in Golspie and Rogert and Brora, etc. So we're all trying to do the same thing. What I'd like to do is bring all those things under the one umbrella, so we can all work for each other and share goals with similar outcomes and ambitions. Thanks.
Yes, excellent. David, you want to come in?
Yeah, just a couple of things on what Eileen said and what Simon said as well. At the Kyle Sutherland Development Trust as well, we cover 2 community council areas, and we're just about to, I'm in the process of drafting a 5 or 6 year a plan for the trust, a strategic development plan. But it's exactly the same. It's homes, it's transport, it's, you know, so there's lots of organisations who are still going to be and groups that are going to be there to do things for their immediate community. But as long as what the outputs do chime with the Sutherland wide stuff, then to me that's a win-win, and you've got more bodies putting in towards it. So we'll look at that. The other thing that Simon made a really good point about core funding, but going back to Richard's point, the coastline of Sutherland is not going to change. There's lots of other things changing, but the coastline of Sutherland is not going to change. So we get a lot of money coming in every year from what used to be the Crown Estate money that goes into the CRF. Why can't we earmark some of that money every year to be used for core funding for delivery for the SCP and SRI or whatever we deem to be the priorities? I think that is as good a use of money as anything in Sutherland, and it reaches every community in Sutherland. So we do have funding coming in every year due to our natural assets. Why not use that to try and make sure that that all we're left with is natural assets? Because if we don't have people here, then the coastline, the money that comes in from the coastline is not going to do much good.
Indeed, and it is a matter of great regret that the council sliced 10% off the top of our award yesterday. Eileen, your hand's up. Is that a legacy hand, or you want to come back in?
It probably is, but I can just say something anyway, if you don't mind.
Good for you.
I think it's time for a sea change in the way that we think about these things. You know, how this consultation came about was when I took over chair, which was over a year ago, and I asked for the community plan. It was unbelievably out of date and irrelevant, you know? And I think that's what forced the change, you know, forced this piece of work to be done. Let's go out and find what people are actually wanting. People didn't know what was going on. I agree with this resilience initiative. It needs to be Sutherland wide, because I think, yes, we are sort of a way up there, you know. And I always used to laugh at my father when he watched the weather forecast. He used to say, look at them, they dismiss the north with a wave of their hand. That's what's happening here, right? And I think Inverness does it, alarm to them. I'm still seeing it. We used to really laugh at this. See, as I've got older, he's absolutely right, you know. So yeah, I think it's exciting that this coming up, and if you're all interested in seeing this, we'll make sure it gets out to you as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. There's a new
Okay.
star shining in the north.
Some people don't say that, I can tell you now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody else want to come in and either the core transport project or the general mission of SRI? In which case, I'm keen just to not to leave it as an academic discussion at this point, but I'm very keen to actually have a clear-cut actions, and we have an action coming from Eileen with her consultation document to come forward. But I think picking up on something that David has said about the private sector initiatives that are on our doorstep, and which we really need to get our noses in the trough. And I quite agree with that. So if we deal first of all with the Freeport initiatives, which is hanging in there, and as David has frequently said to me, and I take the criticism personally, we're not actually getting in there as part of the action. So can we actually organise a meeting between SCP and a little bit of a slip there, SCP and the Freeport? Is it Duncan McPherson by name? To actually just tie down just where we actually can go. We actually have, I'll skip past the cool golf course on my doorstep, which is a 50 million project, but which Ariane Burgess will absolutely screw. So I don't think I hold out much hope there. And move on towards the peatland restoration. Northern Times tells me today there's 18 million to come in for that. That's 18 million over about 20 years, but perhaps we need to actually tie down what's happening there. And also the Avoyne rocket range has gone a bit quiet as well. And these are just three of the initiatives that are looking at Simon's map, which I'm absolutely grateful he's kept up there, which is on our territory, on our doorsteps, but which we actually need to dig into, and we actually need to find direct cooperation with and information from to actually show that we exist. So is that something that Richard, for example, SRI can take forward even before our charitable status is agreed?
We can have discussions about it anytime, Jim, and I'm happy to get involved in that. That's not a problem for me. I think once we get the charitable status actually in place, then that will give us a little bit extra clout as well, and we'll be able to have that conversations. I think what would be really good will be to get around the table and map not anything other than what assets we have in place. What funding can we pull together? I mean, I think if we went around Sutherland, there's quite a lot of funding there, and really, how do we access that? How do we get at it for the common good, to benefit everybody across the county? And I think if we pull that information together, then we can look at what assets we have and actually make a plan. But pull all interested parties together, all the community councils and the development trusts, the transport groups, everybody together and say, well, what assets do we have across this county, and then what are we prepared to do with it? And I think we have to have a legacy project that pushes forward to actually develop the county, because one will feed the other. You know, if we get all protectionist about our own little pots, then we won't achieve a county-wide issue. And it's a lot of money will sit in a bank, and I can think of 2 or 3 pots where there's up to £1 million sitting in a bank, and people trying to find high-interest accounts for them to squirrel it away for a rainy day. Well, somebody needs to understand it's pissing down at the moment, and we need to be doing something with that money. So, yeah. Excuse my French.
Yeah,
and I think that's important.
The phrase legacy project just tweaks something in my mind, because I should have mentioned in the passing whether it happens or not. The SSEN power line, which is coming through our territory, and we're going to, should it ever happen, despite local objection, and we're going to have to make sure that there is clear legacy, enduring legacy coming from that particular possible pot as well. Okay. I'm not quite sure. I've lost track of my actions here. I'd rather have concrete actions. Perhaps, Fiona, you'll be in a position at some point when you do it, when you kind of summarize things to identify clear things that we're going to do in the near future. Is that reasonable, or are you kind of who's taking the minutes today, by the way?
Emma's taken the minutes, but it has
Okay.
been recorded, and I have noted down the actions, Jim, so not to worry.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Can we delete my comments from the minutes, please?
Just the French ones.
Yes, sanitize it a little bit, please.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure will be. That is the professional skill of the minute taker. Okay, anybody else want to come in here, because it's been rather focused around a few of us, and I'm very grateful for Eileen's intervention and letting us know what's happening in that corner. But anybody else want to come in at this point on either the transport scheme or the economic insurgence of the resilience initiative? Okay, in that case, I'll take that as everybody's quite content. And rolling on, because that's the first hour almost in. Looking through the updates, Richard, I think transport has been well and truly covered. Unless you have anything else to mention.
No, that's plenty, Jim. Thank you.
Okay, Doctor. Fuel poverty, if I look back, it'll be as the brief report that I submitted at the start of the week, but we are maintaining contact with the Rural Energy Consumers Working Group, which is Gillian Martin. Oh, Jane coming in. And I think Gillian Martin is progressing the concept of a social tariff, though, as David keeps reminding me, when we're off gas with gas units a quarter of the price of electricity units, then perhaps that's doesn't have any great benefit to us. A bit of background. Never mind. I'll keep going. Di Alexander is keeping on top of the Ofgem communication, and we have Fuel Poverty Advisory Panel, constant interaction with them. One of the things that's also interaction with the Human Rights Commission from the point of view of fuel and food poverty in this part of the world. And it's an issue with pay points, and I've been in contact with the Central Pay Point Agency, and if there is, I think there are pay point vacuums on the north and the west, and they are quite content if any retailer wishes to come forward and set up as a pay point area. But it's £100 a month subscription fee, which is in a small scale retailing business is quite a substantial hit into the profit margins. Marianne, were you going to come in there, please?
It was just to say that Ascent has been a bit of a black spot for the pay point, but I think I've got somebody persuaded to take it on. One of the local shops is going to, well, they've got all the application forms, and I've offered any support I can give to try and get them to do it. So they're quite up for it, which is quite a relief to me, and I'm sure lots of other people too.
That's good. I was hoping you'd come along and say something like that, because I'm well aware that Ascent was a very much a vacuum in terms of pay point provision. I think there's some. I don't know if we could actually assist from. Okay, Peter's off. I see you later, Peter. Can we actually perhaps? I don't think you can subsidise the free market area from our ward discretionary, but I'm not quite sure just what we can do to help to actually lubricate that. But they're quite keen to go ahead. So much the better. Perhaps we'll be interfering in the free market operation. Food poverty group is so much the same. If I can find my latest paperwork, and I think we've very much run out of council support for larders and so on. So much of the work is done by local operations, by CFINE, and by local community groups. So it's ticking over. And I think also, as David has pointed out regularly, we have much to thank MFR Cash for Kids for, and also the Westminster Fund as being groups which are of great assistance in a very, very difficult time. And of course, Anna is pursuing with Grow Your Own, and that kind of approach to food provision. With CFI looking to expand their operation at Valness to provide frozen and chilled foodstuffs. David, you want to come in?
Yeah, just to reiterate a couple of things that KSDT's been doing, but on behalf, to my mind, of the poverty groups of the SCP, because we're doing it across Sutherland. So in the build up to Christmas, we get the final statistics back on the support that was given to people facing hardship, and this is all done through referrals from partners. Every person is spoken to, but we decided to take most of the actions into our own hands this year. And in the 3 weeks before Christmas, we distributed £34,600 of food vouchers to under 25. So that was 346 children in 168 households. That's through Westminster funding. That funding is now done. We didn't expect to spend that much at Christmas, but that's what we did. We also, for the food and play aspect, distributed 247 Christmas bacon kits to referrals. 231 age-specific Christmas Eve boxes were distributed to children in hardship to try and make sure they had a good Christmas. And in the Kyle of Sutherland, 168 residents, including 26 children, were supported with a community food larder for a full Christmas meal, and 85 people enjoyed the 3-course Christmas dinner at the Community Food Stop Cafe. It was an incredible amount of work. It was an incredible impact, and we've had amazing feedback. The feedback almost makes it worth it, but what we realised that the kind of outputs that we did this past December are really not sustainable either financially or operationally, and it really took a toll on the entire staff and organisation. We are already speaking to other organisations across Sutherland to see if we can share the load for next Christmas. I don't want to leave in a negative, because the fact of the matter is there's £54,000 worth of support given to families in hardship prior to Christmas, and that's what the headline should be. But we have to look at ways of making it better, because it's a big ask. Jim mentioned MFR Cash for Kids. We just secured another £17,000 from MFR Cash for Kids yesterday. Their interventions are for £50 per child. They don't have the same restriction that the Westminster Foundation has, in that Westminster only wants to support food. So food vouchers are given, but with MFR there's more flexibility for clothes and fuel and things like that. So we've got another 17,000. We're going to work very closely with TIKES to make sure that we can distribute, and other organisations across Sutherland, to make sure that we can do that. So there is still opportunities to get there. I've just been asked to join the board of MFR Cash for Kids, the North Board, so that I'm there to represent Sutherland and fight the corner for Sutherland as well, to make sure that we can get things, continue to get things in there. But I hope in 5 years' time, when we're all here, and Richard, you'll still be a councillor then, in 5 years' time, we're speaking less about support for people in hardship and more about the jobs that are being created and the apprenticeships that are being done and all that kind of stuff. But while we have to, there is still support there. So I just wanted to mention that, Jim, while you were talking about the poverty groups, because it's as a result of the collective work of the poverty groups that we're able to properly support people.
And people are supported because of the presence of the Kyle Sutherland Development Trust and the support team, which have been invaluable this last few years, and hopefully still there in 5 years' time. And perhaps I'll have a job caddying on the Emble Golf Course. Marianne.
I just wanted to recognise the amazing achievement of what David and the rest of the staff are doing there at Kyle Sutherland. That is incredible for young people in the area. And also recognition to how it is unsustainable, that huge amount of work. I don't know how you do it, but the other thing that worried me recently is that one of the schools I go to have been asking the local community council for donations towards morning snack money for kids at the school, because they're aware of families who are not able to send their kids in with money for snack. And I mean, the community council will help out, but that's something I hadn't come across before. I don't know if that's common to the area or not.
Okay, David, what's a quick answer for that one?
Yeah, just one thing that came in, to given the role that I'm now working with MFR Cash for Kids, I'm speaking to Lindsay, their manager, who's excellent. They've set up a thing in Culloden Academy called a kindness cupboard, and they put funding towards that, and it's for little bits and pieces, not necessarily always a food, but other bits and pieces. And it could be, I mean, it breaks my heart to say this, it could be things like deodorant and underwear and clothing and stuff like that. But what had been happening there was that the teachers had been putting their hands in their own pockets to bring in stuff for kids, and that's not sustainable, and it's not going to be uniform across areas. So this example in Culloden Academy of a kindness cupboard that people can access with stuff that's bought for them is a really good model. And Lindsay was speaking to me about maybe engaging with the schools across Sutherland to see if we could set up some of those in the schools. So that might be an opportunity. So any information like that, Marianne, about these issues that schools are facing can maybe feed into a project that can help.
That's an
That's
excellent offer.
great. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was around that amount of money that they were looking for. And it wasn't, you know, a blanket thing to give out to anyone. It was just a very sensitively, discreetly administered donation that they would have within the school. So that would be great.
Fiona, I want to come in. I know, Yvonne, you had something in the chat. I'd like you to follow through, please. Fiona, please.
Yeah, just to say that I know Golspie High School had done a similar thing where they'd approached Golspie Community Council and Brora Community Council to help fund sort of a hot snack over the winter months for their pupils and their Christmas dinners to make sure that nobody missed out on their Christmas dinners.
Excellent. Yvonne, will you want to speak a bit more about your chat comment? Nope. Nope. I can follow up afterwards. Oh. Okay, I understand. Okay then, if we're okay with fuel and food, homes next, Marianne. Tremendous job.
Sorry, Jim, can I just jump in there before Marianne gets started on homes? I just wanted to say that we'd got an email in from Catherine at Golspie to say that after the unexpected loss of Isabel at the Sutherland Care Forum, that Golspie have taken on the food support.
Yes,
there.
I should have mentioned that earlier on. Yeah, thank you. Marianne, so over to you.
Okay, I was just looking through the last in the minutes, and I mean, a lot of the previous stuff, in fact, all of the previous things noted there are still ongoing. Not that we haven't done anything, it's just that all of these things are ongoing. The Homes and Infrastructure Group have also been having a recent focus on the need to improve the existing housing stock and to identify empty, inefficient housing and try and get it back into use. And people will be tired of hearing this, some of the people on the call, but associated to that, there's some good news in that at the end of January, Highland Council's funding for the empty homes officer post was due to come to an end this month. But due to some really, really good work between members and officers at Highland Council and meetings and collaboration with the Scottish Empty Homes Partnership, that post will now remain for at least another year. I would like to say it will be beyond that, but we'll have to work hard on that. But also the added bonus is that the post is going to be reshaped to make it a better match with what's needed in rural Highland, rather than just sort of what happens in the rest of Scotland. And also very nicely, the existing empty homes officer was up for an award with the Scottish Empty Homes last night in Glasgow, and I can't find anywhere online how that went, but it's a huge achievement just to be in the nominated finalists anyway. So that was some good news. Else? Well, the reference in the earlier agenda item of promoting the aims of our steering group in housing and infrastructure, that's what we've really been saying over and over again. We need to find a way of doing that. So hopefully our new resilience initiative is going to be the vehicle for that. I always think on the infrastructure part of our subgroup, all the other groups are connected to that because it's all to do with building infrastructure and building resilience. So thank you so much, Richard, for all you've done with the transport project and developing it into something that can be so much wider, hopefully. It's a huge amount of work, and everybody else on that team. The childcare work's going on. We're still working with Northwest 2045. The working group there is moving on, and also that's kind of opening up to try and make a better match for the rural communities where it's the whole of the Northwest involved in that one pilot, but I would like to think it could apply much further than that once we've started to progress it. There was a good meeting recently up in Kinlochbervie with Marie Todd, and hopefully that voice is getting louder and being spread a bit further. And I feel with all these things, the more that, you know, even a small thing is being, you know, a little bit of change, like the empty homes officer, I'm sure there were members in our group at council who weren't even aware of that amazing work that was going on and how Highland is disproportionately affected by the problem of empty homes. So it's spreading that word and making, it's another thing that Sutherland, somebody might remember, you know, we're talking about getting Sutherland out there. So I think all these things do help.
Yes.
So I think that's me for the housing and infrastructure, unless David wants to add anything on there.
Thank you very much, Marianne. David,
Just-
anything to add?
Just to say that I was at a conference a week ago today, which was the Rural Housing Scotland Rural Futures Rural Solutions Conference, and there wasn't a tremendous amount that was spoken about that we didn't know. However, there was a fantastic presentation from the Isle of Raasay about some young people that are doing work there, and they are making great strides in retrofitting and bringing older empty homes back into life, and it's much quicker than building new homes. So once we have this intelligence that Marianne's spoken about, and we can start, there may be opportunities to get houses for people up and running that are energy efficient and they're future proofed. There's a bit of work and expense has to go in to make sure that they're not just the old cold homes that we have. We have to do a bit of work on them, but to bring them back into life and bring them back into useful life is a quicker and cheaper solution than just automatically going to building new homes, which again is part of the mix that we have to do, but it's long-term, huge amount of funding, huge amount of planning issues, huge amount of land issues, etc., etc. So it was a really interesting thing from Raasay. I would actually quite like to catch up with them. Obviously, they face island pressures that are slightly different, but similar pressures in fuel poverty, food poverty, young people leaving, needing to create jobs. Transport is different because it's transport on water rather than on the roads, but apart from that, it's very similar. So I think there's a lot of things that we can take from examples elsewhere and realise we're not ploughing a lone furrow. This isn't unique to Sutherland. This is the entire Highlands and Islands are facing the same issue. So let's learn, big borrow and steal from elsewhere and see what we can do to try and help people here.
Okay, I'll take it on board. Richard?
Just as Marianne and David were talking there, I was just thinking about the amount of homes or buildings that we have across Sutherland that are probably with rundown and in estate ownership or landowner ownership that are basically not being used, and there's no plans to use them. Could we look at maybe mapping where these buildings are and approaching the landowners to either donate them or to lease them on a peppercorn lease, so that we could actually and renovate them as well, and then we get the funding to actually bring them back into use. Because I bet there are a lot of places that that need housing anyway. And I think is that a possibility? I mean, I'm just thinking out of the box here, but it's what Marianne and David are talking about. It seems so important, and if we've got that opportunity, and the empty homes officer, Marianne, that's fantastic. It's still continuing, and if we could get him or her to identify these properties across this county, then that would be a really useful thing to do.
Definitely, and I think, I mean, it was kind of just by chance, because I'd been working with one of the community councils who've already put together a list of empty properties, not just homes, but buildings that they were sort of looking at. And that's when I went back to, because I've worked with the empty homes officer before, and that's when I discovered that, they said they couldn't take on any new cases because the outlook was for the job to be ending. So yes, that's exactly the sort of thing that we can be working on. And I think it's interesting because in the childcare work we've been doing also, there are businesses coming forward saying that they are interested in playing a part, just like we were saying earlier in the agenda. We need to be able to do that, get that kind of partnership where we've got businesses involved in these very sort of innovations that you're talking about. Yeah.
Buyers, steadies and bothies. They can all
And
be turned into household.
Yeah, and the other thing I forgot to say was, I think, maybe we can do work to support what's going on with the Crofting Commission and the Farm Advisory, can't remember what they're called, is it the
SCP.
Crofting Farm Advisory Service, because I'm seeing some groups, of young people who are managing to have crofts assigned to them, and then they're looking for advice about what they can do and can they get a home there, and creative ideas like modular units to put on a croft. I think it was suggested by Christine from Scourie in one of our meetings that, people who are handing on crofts, but they don't necessarily want to move away. So, you need an extra accommodation provided within that croft or 2 crofts that somebody may have. Just the other things we could look at, because there is funding available there if we could just support people towards accessing it.
Well, the Croft Housing Grant is there, and Ronnie McRae's Communities Housing Trust should be able to help. And I'm quite sure our planners will be amenable to fast-tracking some applications if they come through. Maybe. Irene?
It's just a comment actually on empty homes. When I was getting this consultation document out, Melvick Community Council runs down as far as Forcenard. So from Forcenard to the end of the junction with the A36, there are 43 houses, and 11 of them are either empty or holiday homes. It's the effect on a community that empty homes have as well. We're struggling with numbers for schools and all the rest of it. It's that whole bigger thing. I was quite amazed because I get a bit anal about counting things and all, so I was there and I was going, when I was coming up with this, I was going, how many of these are there? You're sure there's nobody lives in this house, and then trying to isolate what was an empty house and what was a holiday house. But the effect is nearly the same.
Yes,
it is the same.
Yeah.
It's just taking away that accommodation for the young people that we want to keep with their families and working in the area. So I just thought I'd say that.
Yes, a point well made. I also do counting. 151 houses in Embo, and there are 20 holiday homes in the village, and actually 20 families that we don't have.
Yes, that's.
Sorry, carry on, please.
No, that's the way I think about it. And that's families that we don't have. There to support everything. Yeah.
No, I think David, were you next?
Just a couple other things that I took from the conference. One was, interestingly, that Angela's boss, Stuart Black, spoke, and High have recognised that homes and housing is a major economic constraint, and they're going to start doing a lot of work there, a lot more work there, which was something that previously they didn't do. So that's going to be interesting to see how that progresses. But I think this kind of ties back into the opportunities, whether it's through the SRI or whatever we decide to do. But we also have the unimaginably named depopulation strategy from the Scottish Government. It should have been called the repopulation strategy, I would argue, but anyway, it's called the depopulation, which is a negative connotation. But we are also, and that's been backed to a degree through posts in certain areas, but I also heard at the conference from areas like Orkney and the Cairngorms, where their growth, and they have growth ready to go, that has been constrained by lack of homes. So areas that are depopulating and going down are competing for housing budgets with areas that can provide growth immediately if there is holes there. So again, we need somebody to shout in our corner to say it's important that Sutherland gets the investment in, because again, it could easily disappear to more houses in Aviemore or Braemar or something, because they're ready to go and build more jobs and all this kind of stuff. We're at a different stage, so somebody still has to make that argument for us. And again, that's why we need some sort of collective voice and collective vehicle to be able to do that on behalf of Sutherland.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, indeed. But to a certain extent, we have potential for growth in different pockets, and I don't think we should lose sight of that. But what you're saying is quite correct. The SRI is an important part to play, and I'm quite convinced of that. Okay, anything else for under homes, or can we move on? I'm not sure if Leslie Ann's here. Emotional well-being and Sutherland Cares. I'm not quite sure if anybody can provide an update on that.
I can give you a wee update, Jim.
Thanks, Fiona.
I'm hoping by the next meeting in June that we'll have had our first proper meeting. It's kind of expanded a little bit, Sutherland Cares. Originally, it was just going to be sort of Sutherland Cares by Wellbeing, but we've been speaking to Ailsa at Public Health, and she's really keen to link in with us and do some work around her green health and the planet. So Sutherland Cares about the planet and green health and sort of those social prescribing initiatives. And I've also been speaking to Kai at the Whole Family team that I see is here today about maybe having a Sutherland Cares about the family, like for that kind of, so that'll be another branch of Sutherland Cares, and having sort of a similar invite list for those about, people involved in Sutherland in emotional well-being or working with families, East Highland, High Life Highland, those kind of groups. And the priorities will be around, getting voices for our families, our young people, and people needing support with their mental health. So
thank you very much, Fiona. Kai, you want to add any to that, please?
No, just Fiona's been fantastic. She is just I just always love coming to your meetings. Actually, I just feel you I don't live in Sutherland. I'm Mr. Ross, but actually, I'm just always speechless at the amount of work that goes on there. It's really, really good. So no, I'm just looking forward to getting more contact in Sutherland. And I know I've spoken with Marianne as well, so I'm still hoping for that wee tour, Marianne, as well, which will be really, really good. And I've spoken to Angela and a few other of the Sutherland businesses and organisations. So no, just look forward to going forward with that, to be honest. Our first phase of our funding is going to be open in April, so really keen to get things off the ground and so get some money released in the community. So hopefully be seeing a lot more of you all, if that would be okay.
That's good. That's good.
But thanks, Fiona, you've been great. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kai. And when you say money communities, that's when my ears perk up. And
yes, indeed. Well, it's just to make good use of it. I think, just again that with that resilience and sustainability. So because there's lots of work, fantastic work going on in Sutherland, and just to be able to help that and sort of join it up a bit more would be brilliant.
Well, I echo your comments about Fiona, and I can think Brendan Rogers' comment, but I will not say it. Okay, thank you very much for that. That's good. That's very positive. That's excellent. And perhaps we'll get a bit more at the next SCP meeting in June, I think. Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah.
Okay. Network group updates. Phil, are you around for Northwest 2045, Phil Tomlin?
I am.
Thanks, Phil. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I did send around a written update, but it was just yesterday, so I don't know whether it's been distributed, but it'll be available afterwards. It's very much the work of Boyd, who's on the call or was on the call, and Rachel Skeen, who's been doing the regional land use partnership and also the Ferns funded project to try and what's the word for it? I've forgotten what we call it. But anyway, the Ferns. Just give me a second. The Ferns funded project is due to come to an end shortly. That's been about generating natural capital propositions to take to buyers. So it's trying to sell improvements to the environment in Kinloch Burvey to investors who can then balance that against their social and environmental responsibilities to.
Okay.
So it's quite hard to understand, and I actually don't understand it very well myself, but it does reflect something that's going on as well with the Flow Country and with the World Heritage Project, where they're also trying to sell carbon credits, but sell investment opportunities to improving and reclaiming peatland to people who want to put those kind of things in their annual reports to shareholders.
Yeah.
So there's a really good opportunity. The work in Kinloch Burvey is more about trying to bring a social element to that, which I think is what makes it really quite interesting and unique. And they do promise that they will be giving us a little bit of an update on how that's going. And I know it has generated interest around the Sutherland Partnership. So there may be some opportunities that we could look at in the future. But it is quite difficult to grasp. I find it quite difficult to grasp anyway.
Yeah. Well, I had a bit of a discussion about the different forms of capital with Professor Davy Bell, and I understood what he said when we were in school together, but he kind of lost me in the conversation at different points. But I understand there are different forms of capital, and that natural capital is one of these which can be harnessed is perhaps too strong a word, but can be perhaps to the benefit and well-being of the community.
Yeah.
Any questions for Phil?
I've got a little bit more to say. I'm sorry if that was too long.
No, sorry, Phil. No, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Very briefly on the Regional Land Use Partnership, waiting for a decision on that from the Minister. That's Mary Gudgeon. And they've put together quite a lot of work to try and persuade the Scottish Government this pilot is worth continuing with. And you can see that for yourself in the thing that that was put together. In terms of repopulation, Boyd is on the call, but the paper also includes a quick graphic of stuff that's currently going on. I would urge you to look at the graph that shows the housing developed historically over the past 20 odd years and what's been developed now. And there's a lot more being developed now than there was in the past. I know we've been talking about housing. I know we're saying that there isn't enough, and there's a demand for much more, but there is at least some movement going on that, led by the council and by communities themselves. So there's some really interesting different models being explored there, and largely down to the support that. So a lot to be a lot there. And then there's some other stuff about engagement, but we've already talked about the Royal Housing Conference. So, but I know that one of the people who went from Northwest 2045 was Francis Gunn, who's well known to people on this call. And Francis has been working with Wildland, which is a private business. And I don't know exactly the details of that, and I'm sure she could share that with folk in the future. But we're talking about how businesses can benefit communities and can benefit and help us meet our own priorities and communities' priorities. Well, Wildland is one example of that. And I think that there are probably some really interesting lessons that can be learned from that, about how that can get taken forward, and also what some of the challenges are. So that's probably all that I need to say just now, Jim. There's about 3 sides of stuff that people have provided me and that I've shared with Fiona. And if there's any questions, then people can always get in touch with us after the call.
The report you mentioned, has that been circulated, or is it?
No, it's like an update, Jim, that we normally give, but I only put it together just yesterday, so
okay,
I don't think it was circulated in advance of the meeting, but hopefully it can come out with the notes.
Yeah, if I was trying to stick a label on what you're saying, it's not a public-private partnership, it's a community-private partnership, perhaps you're looking at with wildland of some kind. Okay, Boyd, would you wish to kind of add anything to what Phil's saying, please?
Sure. I just put the graphic in the chat for what Phil was talking about, the
Thank you.
Historical houses that were built. And that's completion. House completion may also include extensions. But that bar chart that we're looking at 2025 is that includes some of the stuff I've done, but most of it is other community groups as well. So it's really quite encouraging. And the graphic that's in the report that Phil will send round, or the update that Phil will send round, will show where they all are. And I just want to say the Northwest 2045, I think the work they're doing in Kinloch Berbies, they looked at Shegra, a community in Shegra, and the IDIG wrote in a consultant from Galbraith, I think it is, and they were looking, for example, at installation, and if they insulated the housing, how much would be saved in terms of carbon, and that taking that concept to sell to investors, as opposed to selling off the peat or anything. So that was the idea. And
sorry, carry on.
I think that's about all I got to add in.
Okay. Now I look forward to reading that. I think Simon, were you wanting to come in again? I saw a quick thing in the chat there. I see a hand up. I'm not quite sure whose.
No, it wasn't me.
Kidok.
I had my hand up.
Okay, right. Sorry.
I just wanted
sorry, Maria,
to.
Sorry, I thought. Sorry, I did forget.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something about wildland. It's not all good. The community partnership, they are investing heavily in our community, mainly in tourist services, hotels and things, and they are putting in planning permission for several houses, 2 of which may well be under community ownership, but that doesn't fully mitigate the effect they have that any house that becomes vacant, they buy, and they're not all occupied, and they don't have tenants. If you live in a house owned by wildland, you have to be working for wildland.
Yes, I see. Yes. So it's a quite restricted framework they're operating.
This is operating. He does it very well, trying to get as much for the community as possible. But I say it's not all good.
Okay, yeah. It is the nature of the beast. You don't get to be a billionaire by being good all the time.
And it shows some of the pitfalls of working with the private sector, I think.
Yeah. Their bottom line must be paramount at the end of the day, and their shareholders also. A cautionary warning, which is well received. Okay. As we're moving on, and I think we have Scan. Angela, is this one for you to pick up, please?
I think Karina's on the line and she was going to pick it up today,
good.
if that's all right. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, so it was mentioned in the minutes from the last meeting that we were looking at changing the name of the group. It was originally Sutherland Resilience Call, so that was from when it was originally set up from COVID time, so it felt like it was a good time to relook at what the aims of the group was, and also to change the name as well. So we discussed that at the last meeting, and suggestions were made from those attending and voted on. So it's now Sutherland Community Anchor Network. So it's, for those that don't know, it's a support network for different anchor organisations from right across Sutherland. Our focus is really just on updates from the ongoing work from everyone who attends, and just sharing knowledge, relevant information with each other, but also the challenges that the groups are facing and how they overcome those. One of the main topics recently has been, as ever, just the ongoing issues around funding, particularly core funding, just the difficulties that the groups have when it comes to funding and the amount of time they're having to spend on that. So we're trying to get some actions together from that, trying to align funders together, make the funding process a bit more straightforward would be ideal. So there's been suggestions around whether there might be a funders forum for Sutherland. So that's one of the main focuses of the group at the moment. The next meeting is on Tuesday next week, which is the 5th of March. So a lot of these discussions and conversations will continue with the group then. So that's an update from the new Sutherland Community Anchor Network, as it will now be known.
Well, thank you very much, Karina, for that. I very much welcome the name. I think it's an excellent name. I think it also removes that little bit of confusion that we might have with the Southern Resilience Initiative, which is newly formed. So that's also really good. And Tuesday's meeting, have invitations been put round, because if I can get an invitation, I'll try to attend. I keep saying that, but it just depends how other things come in.
Yeah, no problem at all, Jim. I'll forward that on to you just now, and you're more than welcome to attend. That would be good.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Any questions for Karina? And nope. Thank you all very much for holding with us. We still have our good numbers. And David, the last one bullet point I have here is the support team from yourself. Anything to add to what you've already said, please?
Aye, we've got good news and bad news. The Hive, we had some underspend from the project that Fiona and Scott are employed to deliver on behalf of the partnership. And the underspend it has been agreed by High kindly that can be carried over. So the good news is we've got Fiona till August. The bad news is we've got Scott till August. He's not here, so I can say that. So no, the team's going to be in place at a minimum till August, which is fantastic, but that's not long away. But in March now. However, what we have done is we've also put in a funding bid to the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which has been given to Highland Council, which will be delivered through their Community Regeneration Fund, and using some of the high underspend as match funding, which then would have continuity in the team until March. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that. I still think, though, and I've said this a few times recently, I think there is a really good case to try and ring fence some annual funding for support for these functions through the coastal funds, because they reach every community in Sutherland and give support to every community in Sutherland. I think it's money well spent. I would struggle to think of better ways to have money spent. The one thing that I will caveat that with is that I'm not just saying that because KSTD function that. I've always said along, if anybody else wants to do it, anybody else feels they can do it, KSTD happily step away. The most important thing is we have support for Sutherland and for the partnership, whether that's through KSTD, SRI, or whoever wants to deliver it. So I'm not just making a case for continued funding for the trust. We're looking beyond that. I think what we need is continued funding for support across Sutherland. Where that's delivered from can be decided elsewhere. But the good news is Fiona and Scott haven't started tidying up their desks yet.
Okay, so I can maintain an illusion of competence until August in that case, which I welcome. Okay, thank you very much. Now, any questions for David from around the Assembly? Okay, right, thank you. I'll move on to Community Matters and AOCB. And at this point, can I just note, with deep regret, retirement of Margaret Brown. I'm sure she's delighted herself, but she's been a very, very positive contributor to all our meetings, and she has come up with some very valuable, very, very valuable NHS statistics, which I use regularly. So I just would like to assure perhaps us all wish Margaret a very happy retirement, and we'll miss her greatly. Fiona?
Oh, caught me muted then. Yes, just thank you to Margaret. She is always on it. She sees something that she thinks would interest the SCP. She's one of the first people to keep us all in the loop. So thank you to Margaret. Just before we move on, I wondered whether Jane from the Highland Community Planning Partnership team had anything to add, or Kai from the Whole Family Wellbeing team as part of their roles within the partnership.
No, I think we'll get some more meetings with you, Fiona, first before we can do any more updates. I just want to thank Angela and Yvonne as well on the call. We've had really good chats this week. So, and I would love to come along to the SCAN meeting actually as well if I could get an invite. I know Angela mentioned that the other day just to hear more about what's going on. So that would be great. But no, we'll have lots more to tell you at the next meeting. But thank you.
Thank you. Phil, you want to come in there?
Maybe let Jane go first if she's got something to follow up from Kai.
Hi, yeah, thanks. I don't want to keep everybody too long, but I do have a couple of just three things that I want to highlight. Just the Community Planning Partnership Board meetings. Apologies.
Shall I do my bit, Jim?
Okay, if you don't mind, Jane, we'll let Phil carry on, please.
Okay, I just wanted to quickly just update people on a change with the ward management team. Some of you be aware that has happened. So the ward management team has been replaced by a community development team. I don't know if Fiona is still on the call. Fiona Richardson was on the call before. Oh, there she is. Yeah. So we now have a Caithness, Sutherland and East Ross community development team made up of a senior community development manager, which is Helen Ross. Helen used to be the senior ward manager for Caithness, Sutherland and East Ross, as well as East Ross ward manager. So we've got Helen, and then we've got two community development managers, which is Fiona and me. And we've got a community support officer whose name is Liam Clancy, who's new to us in Sutherland, but I think will be a real resource. Certainly looks, has been really, really helpful and is getting his feet under the table. So just briefly on the roles. So I should say that we've lost our policy team. We used to have a policy team in Inverness. That has gone. So all of the functions that were performed by that policy team have been given out to the community development area teams. So that includes community asset transfers, for example. And in the north, Helen has been given responsibility for the council's inequalities and equalities function, which is not an inconsiderable piece of work because that involves impact assessing new policies council-wide. So you can see actually we've moved quite a long way from just being community focused, and it means that we've kind of been pulled in a number of directions. Anyway, in terms of community development, that will largely, I'll perhaps just say about Liam first, sorry, the community support officer. He will be the principal contact for community councils, the ward budget, and the initial community asset transfer expressions of interest. And then after that, they'll be picked up by me and Fiona. So between me and Fiona, we have split Caithness, Sutherland and East Ross between us because there's just two of us. And we aren't split geographically, we're covering the whole area. And that means that we have different, it's kind of cut thematically. In Sutherland, I am continuing with community planning. So I will continue to be the contact at Sutherland Partnership, which is probably the relevant bit for this meeting. I want to apologise for my absence for the last few weeks. I haven't been to many of the subgroups, if any, because I've been trying to get my head around the stuff that I need to pick up in Caithness. But hopefully I'm starting to get to grips with that. Fiona has started now because during January it was just me. So that's made things a lot easier. I hope you're welcome, Fiona, because she's going to be working closely with the local members and the committee, and will inevitably come into contact with many of the people in the room as well. And some of you will know Fiona anyway. I'll let her introduce herself just in a moment. I think actually that's probably all that I need to say at the moment. Happily take any questions. The thing is still bedding in, so please be patient with us because it is really quite a different way of working, and it's quite difficult for someone like me who's worked in Sutherland and with Sutherland and about Sutherland for so long to actually not have things geographically that Sutherland's coming to me. But anyway, we will get there, and hopefully there'll be some real improvements because Fiona, for example, brings a wealth of experience that I don't have around CLD, and I think that will be a real benefit to us all. So hopefully we can make it work really well and make it an improvement. If I'll just let Fiona introduce herself, that's probably enough from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Fiona, you want to say a few words, please?
Yeah, morning, everybody. Really pleased to be here. Like Phil said, my background's been in community learning and development. So in that previous role, I've had links with all the community planning partnerships and worked really closely with Angela, who I'm seeing on my screen. So I'm really looking forward to getting much more involved in Sutherland activity. Like Phil said, I'll be the link with the members and area business meeting and committee. But another role and link that I have is around community councils. Liam is involved in that sort of initial support, but if there was any sort of complex queries for around Sutherland community councils, then I'll be involved in that too. But until we get this new way of work sort of embedded and everybody kind of understanding, I think if you're unsure, just contact Phil and I, and we'll work it out. Because as I say, the good thing about this is very much that sort of team focus. And having just been in the new team this is the end of week 4, it definitely feels like it's been a really smooth transition. Phil's experience and Helen's experience, and Liam, like Phil said, is, he's really sort of on it around more discretionary budgets and support to communities and stuff. So hopefully you'll feel well supported in Sutherland around community development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona. It's a transition I was rather dreading, but I'm quite sure professionalism will kick in and it will all work out. And obviously, currently, we're work in progress, and we will certainly make allowances for that. But I'm quite sure we'll find a positive way forward, a positive future. Any questions for either Phil or Fiona, then please? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Anything else I've forgotten, Fiona?
Just wondering if Jane is able
Jane,
to
sorry,
make it back on.
in there again. Yep. Sorry, Jane.
Hi, apologies. I think my IT is not working this morning. If I keep my camera off, I think it will be okay. So can I just check everybody can hear me now?
Yes, fine, perfect, Jane. Carry on, please.
Absolutely perfect. So before I give my update for today, I thought it would be good maybe just to give a brief overview of my role, but I'll try not to keep everybody too long. So for those of you who don't know me, I am one of the partnership officers working with the Highland Community Planning Partnership Development Team, and I have been allocated the Sutherland Partnership. And part of our role is to support a consistent approach to community planning across the Highlands. So this has included a review of the community partnership activity, and it supported the community partnerships to re-engage those that haven't been engaging, to re-engage, and also to support filling vacant posts and strengthening partnerships around the table where needed. So I have met with the project support team, and I'll be having regular meetings with the project support team and the chair and core partners of Sutherland moving forward, looking at things like the implementation of the minimum standards model, which will support this consistent approach across the Highlands. I'm happy to say that Sutherland is meeting most of the minimum standards, and the ones that they aren't, I will be supporting them with. So that's looking at things like the development of one plan for the Sutherland area, and also implementing some template documents that we're looking at. So the next one that we'll be looking at is communications and engagement template, and I'll be supporting the project support team to adapt this to fit with the local area. Our team also manages the Highland Community Planning Partnership website. If you haven't been over to visit the website, I would suggest you have a look. I'll pop the link in the chat just after I finish giving my update here. And we will be coming along to all the partnership meetings to give some updates on the Highland Community Planning Partnership work and the work of the delivery groups. So I just wanted to highlight the Highland Community Planning Partnership Board meetings. The dates have been set for 2024. So there will be a meeting on the 1st of March, the 5th of June. The September meeting has been changed to the 20th of September. So if anybody had the date as the 13th, can you update that to the 20th? And the last one will be on the 4th of December. So some agenda items to note for the next board meeting. The new Highland Community Justice Outcome Improvement Plan for 2024 to 2029 will be going to the board for approval. There'll be an annual report on the Integrated Children's Service Plan, and the Whole Family Wellbeing Programme progress report will be going. And just the last thing I wanted to highlight is that the Highland Outcome Improvement Plan is undergoing a review, and this was agreed by the board in September. There has been some initial engagement around this review, And that initial engagement feedback will also go to this next board meeting on the 1st of March. That's today. So this afternoon, I think that meeting is at 2 o'clock. So that feedback, so thank you to anybody who contributed so far. And following on from that, the next steps are for a delivery plan to be developed, and a further programme of engagement will take place between March and the end of May. So once we have information on what that will look like, we will share that with relevant partners as we get it. And I think that's it for my update today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane. There's a massive amount in there. And I must admit, I find things like the minimum standards model intellectually challenging for my limited brain. So I'd be very pleased if we could revert to the kind of the relationship I had with Gail Prince, where Gail did my thinking for me and told me what to do. So I'd be very happy to actually take on that responsibility.
And as you know, Jim, Gail was part of creating the minimum standards model, so I'll put forward your words. Thank you.
Okay, right, thanks a lot. Any other questions for Jane in that case? There's a hand there, I'm not quite sure who it is, sorry. No, has it disappeared? I'm not seeing anybody else coming in. No. Ah, Margaret. That's excellent, because I was determined to give you the last word anyway at this afternoon's meeting, because just to repeat, I've greatly appreciated your contributions to our meeting so far. You'll be very greatly missed, and I just hope you'll continue to grace us with your presence at future meetings, wherever your future lies. So, do you want a word or two before we close up the meeting, please?
Oh, thank you for your kind words, Jim. Rather embarrassing. Yeah, it's just to say that there's each of the nine community partnerships areas across Highland has somebody aligned from the health improvement team where I work. So I'm delighted to say that my colleague Claire Derwin will be becoming the link person for the Sutherland CP. Just found that out a couple of days ago. I think I emailed to the interviewer with Claire's email contact details and things like that. So if she can be added to future distribution lists for this particular meeting. And then obviously she might want to get involved in some of the subgroups, depending where our focus will be. But just to let you know that Claire will be the link person in future. Okay, right, thanks very much, and all the best to the Sutherland Partnership in future. And it's been very, very interesting, and I've really enjoyed being linked to you. And I'll be telling Claire how lucky she is to be being aligned to Sutherland instead of any of the other 8. Okay,
Kind words again, Margaret. Thank you very much, and enjoy your retirement, and all best wishes from us all. And I hope I'm sure our paths will cross again. So thank you very much indeed. Okay. Anybody, any other AOCB or community matters or anything of a similar nature? I'm not seeing any hands going up. In which case, we'll pull things to a close and look at the date of the next meeting, which will be 1st of June 2024, as the summer comes on us, hopefully. Any final contributions before we say goodbye? Okay, well, in that case, thank you very, very much indeed for every touch you found as valuable a meeting as I have, and we'll just see where our actions take us in the next quarter of the year. So all the best wishes, and enjoy sunshine if you have it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.